mentioned being in Cambridge right now, investing from across the pond, as they like to say. I don't know how fancy you guys are now, but investing from across the pond and making it work. And you mentioned that this really started as a result of COVID. Can you maybe take us back a little bit and talk to us about how exactly COVID impacted you and made you decide to start investing?
No, absolutely. So over here, we had 3 lockdowns, and the first lockdown was pretty much the same time as the US, but it was a little bit different where everyone was sent home from work. And so Michael and I were like, okay, well, what are we going to do while we're in this lockdown, right? Because we could only leave the house to work out, go to the pharmacy, or go to the grocery store. And so Michael and I started a mini book club with each other, and one book led to another, which was Multiple Streams of Income by Robert Allen. And in the second section, talks about real estate investing. So once Michael read it, he's like, you have to read this right now. Like, we have to figure this out. And Michael went online, found Bigger Pockets. From Bigger Pockets, found like From Military to Millionaire, which is a Facebook group online. And he just posted in there like, hey, are there any other military members who are living overseas but investing in the US? And once we saw people starting to say yes, we were like, okay, we have to do this, right? Like, you hear a lot of people say, like, I wish I would have started investing, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. And so we did not want to wait until we moved back, because then we would have just had the lost years. And so from there, it's like it was a lot. It felt like a tornado, but just going to virtual meetups, going to conferences that were virtual, and meeting as many people as we could, because we knew that once virtual got taken away, like, that would be a big component of what we were doing and who we were with real estate. So we just took as much, I guess, advantage of the situation as we could.
Yeah, I mean, it makes a lot of sense, right? If all the events, all the networking's virtual, where you're physically located at that point opens up, and you can engage with a lot of these investors who are in the United States, even though you are halfway across the world. So that makes a lot of sense that you were able to take that. And I think it's great too, because it just shows what you started doing during the pandemic, right? Because it was a time where people could invest in themselves, invest in their future. And you did that. You started your mini book club, started this path of exploration, came across a book that opened your eyes to real estate investing, dug deeper in that, and ultimately found a way to start building this career and this new revenue stream. So with that noted, how did you go from just the education and networking to actually becoming a real estate investor?
Yeah. So, like I said, we went through the whole education process, like solo education, like reading of all the books we can get our hands on,
listening to podcasts
all day, and then just networking and chatting with people who are a lot smarter than us in the real estate sector. So from that, like, basically, through networking, actually, we ended up meeting a mentor of ours. We were introduced once we identified a market, and we were telling everybody that we were very interested in Tulsa and Oklahoma City, and those are our 2 markets. We just started telling everybody that. And through that, we were introduced to several operators in Oklahoma. And one of those operators I continue to build a relationship with over and over, weekend after weekend, basically week after week, like talking about the market, looking at deals together, underwriting. And then, like, all of a sudden I was like, hey, would you mind, like, taking a look at this underwriting? Let's dig a little bit deeper into this property. Hey, would you mind? And it just, like, the snowball effect, right? Like, I didn't ever ask him to be my mentor. It just developed into that relationship. And then he was on our first deal with us, right? Because you have to have experience on the general partner side, especially for investors, right? That you bring on, like, they want to see that there's actually experience on the general partnership side.
Right. Yeah. And especially being far away, people were already a little bit hesitant. So we definitely needed that experience. That was like a great boost for us.
Especially during COVID too, because, like, we couldn't travel at all. Now Suzy's going back like twice a quarter to look at all of our assets and things like that, which is great to get hands on and stuff like that. But yeah, from that, we, like I said, built an organic relationship with a mentor. And then he helped us close our first deal. And then after that first deal, John, you know how it is, like, everything just kind of snowballs into more and more deals very quickly. And all the brokers are reaching out to you because you have something that they want to sell in the future. Right. So, yeah.
Yeah. And then we're like that couple from England. So we stick out a little bit more. So like worked out like, oh my gosh, people from England closed on a property in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
I
Yeah,
love it,
absolutely.
right?
Yeah, and to speak more on like, COVID and like the virtual environment now, like, real estate, like multifamily real estate is the lifeblood of it is like networking, right? And a lot of it happened through like face-to-face networking. But now, like because of COVID, there's so many things on Zoom, like we were talking about earlier, but like even it's opened up the doors to investing to even more people because now investors, like limited partners, can now have access to more and more general partners or sponsors, right? Because they can get on Zoom and have a face-to-face that way, right? And meet those operators and talk with them instead of having to go for coffee in a location where an operator, or having an operator fly to meet an investor in California or something like that. They're living in Georgia. So like it just opened up the door, and I think it's brought a lot more money into the real estate investing space, which is pretty awesome. So yeah.
I just love the fact that you could actually pull that off, right? And you do all your research or networking with people. And, you find a mentor, someone who's in that market, you're talking about deals, and ultimately this person partners with you on the first deal. What does that deal look like? How many units is that deal? And as you talk about that partnership, what's your role versus maybe your mentor's role and any other partners that you have involved?
Yeah, absolutely. So that deal was 88 units, is 88 units.
Right. And
Yeah,
all are still there.
It. Yeah. Still have it. And Suzy and I have been leading the asset management on it. More Suzy now, as she's now transitioned full time to real estate. Like I was mentioned, she goes back and looks at her properties twice a quarter now. Yeah.
Our mentor's role is very passive. That's how he wanted it. He's like, I am here for you in the background
to ask any questions you have.
Yeah, but that's how you're going to learn the best. And so like Michael and I just doing this as a team, like we found out right away that like we prefer to be lead sponsors. It's just what we like to do. We like to be organized and, like, I don't want to say have control, but, just like know what's going on at all times. And that's actually taught us a lot, but also open the doors for other people, right? Because like you hear so many people saying like, oh, I wish I could go on vacation with my family for a month, but I don't know how to do it from afar. And it's like, you can do it from anywhere. You can be a lead from anywhere. You can raise capital from anywhere. You can asset manage from anywhere. Because if there is a fire, flood, or blood, like I can't do anything, like
yeah.
I can write an investor update and call the insurance company, but I can't like go there and put it out.
Yeah, I mean, great points there. I mean, there's a lot of flexibility. And if you understand really what the asset manager role is, you do have more flexibility of where you're at. And certainly you want to be there. You want to see what's happening. You want to build the relationships with those individuals. That's a key component to it. But you don't physically have to be right next to the asset at all times. Talk to us a little bit about kind of what it was like going through that process of working with investors and raising capital for a deal as a lead operator with no experience coming into that.
It was putting out a lot of content. So, like so often, like you hear, like you have to have a touch point. You have to have a touch point, right? So like when we were showing up to networking events, we would actually snip the screen and like get people's names and reach out to them and say like, hey, we didn't get a chance to meet at this meetup, but I'd love to like learn more about you one-on-one, because we found out right away that our friends and family would not be the people who invested with us. So through all the meetups and all the conferences and just through some referrals, that's how we really made our investor base. But because we were showing up consistently and documenting it, like with our newsletter or on social media, like that gave people the trust that they needed to know that although we were in a different country, we were very real, like we weren't going to catfish them. All of it worked, but it was a lot of like late nights, early mornings, right? We were doing 20 to 25 calls a week, which is not exciting because like towards this journey, right? It wasn't just like, oh, okay, first lockdown, second lockdown, third lockdown, we're all the same. Like we slowly had to go back into work. So while we were working and doing this at the same time, because of the time difference, especially like we were up till midnight, but then up at 4 because people in California, it was still only 8 p.m. And if they wanted to talk to us at night, that's what we had to do to build our list. And so it was just a lot of talking to people when it was most convenient for them. Because at the beginning, that's really what you have to do.
I think there's some great insights, right? First and foremost, you talked about having a lot of conversations, and you have those conversations through creating a lot of content, right?
Mhm.
Getting out there, having conversations with people, creating content, creating a stage where these conversations can happen. That's really important. And I think if anyone is looking to get started, that's the key lesson. You need a platform where you can
Mhm.
engage with
Mhm.
people. And the reason is if you don't have friends and family who are going to invest, you have to find a way to connect with these people. You
Yeah.
said that you found out pretty early that you would not be getting a lot of money or a lot of investments from friends and family. Explain why or how you found that out.
It was more of a, oh, we'll join on like the second or third or the third or fourth. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Just like straight face. Or just knowing that some of our friends and
Yeah.
family don't have the amount of capital that is needed. So I guess it was like a mix of both.
Yeah. That, and then like you think about your friends and family who've known you since, however long. And then you start this new venture for real estate investing. And they're like, no, I know Michael, the Air Force officer, not Michael, the real estate investor, right? So like it's gonna take me a little bit a while to like get used to that idea.
Yeah. And if
Wow.
like your friends and family aren't talking about money, all of a sudden when you're talking about money, it doesn't mean that they're comfortable just because it's you, right? It's still very foreign. So even from like that perspective, whereas with people who were on these meetups and at these conferences, they were more than open to talking about money. And so that is a huge difference as well.
Yeah. I just want to
Yeah,
add one more. Sorry, go
please.
ahead, John. I was just going to add one thing real quick. You mentioned, talking to the people who are thinking about starting, building a platform and stuff like that. Like we have multiple different ways that we're creating content and just like through our podcast, YouTube channel, things like that. We have it everywhere, right? And the same message is going across all those platforms as well, right? So like say we onboard an investor, right? They find us through our podcast, right? Or listening to a podcast. They're onboarded, but then they start doing some research with us and they start looking around and then they find our YouTube channel and then they find our blog posts and they find our podcast. And then, they keep going down this content channel and they're like, okay, this brings a lot of credibility to us, right? So like it solidifies the investor's position once they realize, okay, this person's for real. They're putting out all this content. They know what they're doing, which I think has helped us a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's key is, being consistent in your messaging. What are you saying? Where are you saying it? That's the medium, right? Where are you having these conversations and showing up. And then the other piece that I think a lot of people need to understand is that it's not always going to be convenient. People aren't always going to want to talk between the hours of 12 and 2. You got to expand that, that time frame, and it may be inconvenient for you. But if you can find a way to engage with other people, especially if you have West Coast potentially investors or folks who are overseas, you want to figure out how you can make that happen. And you've done a great job of doing that. What was the raise on that first deal in Oklahoma?
1.7 million.
1.7 million. So, again, not easy to come in and raise $1.7 million on your first deal, but you have to have a lot of conversations and obviously put together a team that, people can believe in. And if you've done that, you've got a mentor, you got somebody in your corner who's overlooking things and helping guide you along the way. It is possible. And Michael and Suzy are a living example that it is possible there. What have you done since then?
Closed four more deals after that. So yeah, it's been fun.
And a lot less phone calls.
Now that we have a lot of things automated and things like that, like, our lead generation is well set up. So that's good.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So from 88, now we have 388. And so that's been fun.
Yeah.
That's been a
And
journey.
this is all within about a 18-month time frame, or what's the time frame?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Roughly.
Yeah. And actually, as of February 23rd, that was like our 1-year anniversary for like when we closed on our first acquisition.
When we closed, you know how much effort it takes in order to take something to the finish line, right? So like that whole process started, like our whole journey, I guess, started like March of 2020. And then we closed on our first multifamily asset in February 2021. Yeah. So then it's been a year. And since February all the way to October, we closed on 5 assets.
I love it. Love it. I love it. Love that growth. Love that that passion that you've got there. What do you think has helped you get that momentum and see 5 deals in a year? Because that's really uncommon for someone to do 5 deals their first year out. So what do you think maybe sets you apart, or what is it that you're doing that's different from what other people are doing?
Oh, I think just like showing up and doing what we say we're going to do. Right. So
Mhm.
like in a meetup, if somebody asks for a referral, we actually sent the email. Or if somebody, wanted anything, asked for anything, like we actually gave it. Cause so many people are like, oh yeah, I'm going to call you tomorrow. And then you never get that call. And it's like, hey, sorry, I'll call you the next day. It was just following up and being consistent, like consistent with content, consistent with showing up at meetups, consistent with showing up at conferences, cause like even when you're at a conference, like going up and saying hi to someone, like they remember that, whether it's in person or virtual. But if you don't ever say hi to them, it's like, oh, I forgot. That's always how it is, right? Like you need those touch points over and over and over. But then also, two people in the screen or next to each other from England, that helps us stand out and set apart.
That too. And then like when we get things sent, our leads sent from a broker, we underwrite and get back to them, or we take take an initial look at it and then respond with some feedback. They like feedback, right? If it's positive or negative, whatever, as long as you keep it engaged with them, right? It's not just sending to an email and getting deleted.
Yeah. It's like just treating them like humans.
Yeah.
No,
they're not just like
great points again. You talked about just really following up, and that's everything in this business is the follow up. You've got to make sure you're reaching out to people, do what you say you're going to do, follow up. I imagine that at some point over the last year, you either were looking at a deal or analyzing a deal, and then when you got to the property, realized it wasn't exactly what you thought it was, or somewhere in the due diligence, you uncover some issues. How do you manage or handle that?
I think we just tell the broker really nicely. We've done the whole, like our property manager does not feel confident leasing here, or this is an area that we don't feel confident investing in. I think it's just really being honest, right? Because we've looked at deals and Michael was like, we have to get back in the car now. Like, why are we here? What are we doing? And
you have 5 seconds. I'm hitting the lock button.
Right. For real. And it was just like, thank you so much for sending us this opportunity. This is why we cannot move forward, or this is why this doesn't work, or thank you for your time, and even little things, especially during like property tours, right? Like a question I always ask the property manager is, how often are you getting pest control calls? Like besides, the monthly roundup. And even just using something like that, right? Like if they say like, oh, we're getting 3 to 4 a week, I'm like, I'm sorry, like I can't move forward because of that. Cause like, then you kind of understand the conditions of the apartments that you did not see, like just kind of asking out of the box questions to like get a better feel for it. Cause they show you the best vacant units, but like, I have to see the people who are living there too.
Yeah. We try to do quite a bit of pre due diligence, like, on the property tour before we even submit an LOI, like I have to feel pretty confident in the asset itself and like where it's located and stuff like that. But to protect us from like something, if we got it under contract, John, and then like, we're going through actual physical due diligence on the property. And once we're under contract, the way we protect ourselves is just writing in a substantial amount of contingency in the underwriting for any kind of CapEx items that might pop up during due diligence. So that can help cover that. So we don't have to go back and retrade and things like that. Obviously, from our negligence, if we miss something during the property walk or something like that. But obviously, sometimes the retrading is necessary if the owner is actually hiding something from you and you discover that during due diligence. But we try to avoid retrading at all costs.
No, I appreciate it. That's great insight right there. And I love that question that Suzy asked about how often are you getting phone calls on pest control, because that does give you an indication of the quality of the resident base, the cleanliness of the property, and maybe any underlying circumstances that are taking place. I want to talk a little bit more about, the platform you have, because I love the fact that it's, all about adventure. You all are out there in Cambridge right now. What sparked you to kind of go with this notion? I mean, what's in your background about adventure? Maybe just give me a little bit more about what drives and motivates you.
Absolutely. So when we were coming up with names, it was like, this is hard. Coming up with your business name is not easy. But like everything Michael and I do like day to day is usually like, hey, do you want to go on this adventure? Which could easily be going on a walk to the grocery store, right? Like it's not that intense, but it can also be intense where Michael and I are like rock climbing or cycling or hiking or snowboarding. And like with adventure, it kind of means something different to anyone, but I know a lot of people like going on adventures. And so like to reflect just like who we are at our core, that's how we came up with Adventurous Real Estate Investors, because we love to travel, we love to be outdoors, but we also make little tasks and adventure to make it more fun. Just because majority of the time when you hear adventure, you're not like, oh, I don't want to go, like it kind of turns into something cool and you smile when you think about it. And so that's where we were coming at, like, when people think of us, what are they going to think of? And like, will that make a good emotional connection with them?
I think as well, I mean, so many people, want to travel and explore the world and have experiences that, real estate investing can open up the doors for you to do that more, right? It can help you create passive income and get you some more some time flexibility. So it's a phenomenal tool that can help you go out and experience more adventures, maybe beyond just, going to the grocery store, but doing some of the things that you
Yeah.
all love as well. With that said, what's been like one of the biggest lessons you've learned in regards to creating the podcast and even hosting the meetups?
Hmm.
I think it's that, gosh, that you have to like think outside of the box almost to keep people engaged with a meetup or with a podcast, right? Like, how are you different from others? Because although like this is a big space, we also all like know each other, but that does not mean that our investor base knows everybody. So it's like, how do we keep the listeners wanting to stay listening to the podcast, right? Like, how are you making it exciting? What are you talking about? Are we asking like insightful and thoughtful questions so that the listeners like, ooh, I want to stay on? But then even for the meetup, right? Like, are we creating value for people to want to spend an hour and a half with us every or once a month? Are we actually answering their questions? Are they getting help from other people in the group? Like, because being overseas in itself, you have to go through like a whole different confidence and like mindset boost. And so like, are we giving them that? Because we don't want to make it seem easy, right? Like we put in a lot of work, but I also don't want to scare people away by saying we put in a lot of work. Like I want people to know that this is possible. You just have to, be patient, I think is the best thing, right? Because so often I find myself saying like, how did that person do that? Then I think like, well, they've been doing it for 5 years, 6 years, 7 years. Like, I just have to remember to tell myself that, because I just,
Patiently aggressive.
yeah, totally.
Yeah, and that's it. I think it's aggressive with the actions, patient on the results, right? And if you can take that mindset to show up every day, be consistent, the results will certainly show. I want to go back to that first deal because I was just thinking about it more that, this is a time frame where a lot of people are having a hard time getting traction, especially on that first deal. And I want to know how you were able to get the broker to take you seriously, given that you hadn't done a deal up to that point. Because as I talk to a lot of newer investors, that's an area they struggle. Brokers won't take them seriously. The brokers are only talking to people who are credible, have experience, they've closed with before. How were you able to break through that?
Yeah, so multiple different ways, John. So one was like we had written multiple LOIs previously with the same broker and submitted them, so he knew that we were serious. And then from those other LOIs that we submitted, obviously we didn't get those ones, but we also, what I did in addition to the LOI, what we also do is put together like a cover letter that has everybody who's on our team, right? So like all of us, like Suzy, me, anybody else who's joining our team for that specific deal. We have our mentor on there. We had the mentor I mentioned who was who bought several assets in this certain area and actually knew the broker as well and closed on a couple assets with that broker too. So that helped us a lot. And then we also have like our property manager identified and our lender identified and our insurance broker and our, real estate attorney and attorneys we're using and things like that. We all those people listed on our cover letter and little bios about each person, right? So like when we submit it, like these are the people we're working with, right? So like we have our entire team built. We are ready to go. We're ready to close on this deal, right? And a lot of people would just like submit an LOI and are scrambling to get everything in place, right? Before they close. And then sometimes, you push closing back, or sometimes you fall out of escrow. And so like those things you want to, the broker wants to avoid, because then it looks bad on the broker to the seller. Yeah. And so there's a lot of things. So we submitted LOIs. He knew we were serious. And then another big thing too was actually partnering with a mentor. There's an organic relationship that we built, who had closed deals with that specific broker before. That helped us.
I just think that's powerful. I mean, you just talking about a credibility package, right? I mean, not only is it an LOI, it's not just, hey, I want to buy your property or buy this property. Here's what I'm willing to pay. But you went really, above and beyond to demonstrate not just your experience, the mentor's experience, the rest of the team, the property manager, the attorneys, the, other team members that you had already identified. And as a newer investor, you don't have the experience yourself, but what you can highlight is the commitment. You can highlight the eagerness. You can highlight the effort. Like those are things that you don't have to have experience to demonstrate how committed you are to something. And I think that broker sees it, and they probably see it deal after deal after deal. And by the time we get to maybe the third or fourth deal where I've seen your LOI and I see how serious you are, that probably changes that perception to say, you know what, we need to find a deal that these guys can do, because they've demonstrated that they're serious. They're looking, they've got the team. I know this person on their team. I've closed deals with that person. So that level of trust has been built. I think it's just a really important and a great actionable takeaway for anyone looking to do deals right now is make sure you are presenting yourself in a very credible way. And the first step of that is actually showing up, following up, and doing what you say. If you see a deal and you're not going to write an offer on it, let them know you're not going to write an offer. If you are going to write an offer, let them write the offer and let them know what you like about it. But make sure you're communicating so that this broker is not guessing about where you stand on an opportunity. I just think that's really great insight there.
Yeah. And even just like for a while, Michael would just call the brokers, be like, hey, how are you? Like, I want to learn more about you. Like, how's your week going? And then it creates like that connection, that like extra step, right? Like, oh, this person cares about me more than just like the deals that I can provide. Let's see where this goes. Like, and so that was, I think, a big part too. Because then when Michael called, it wasn't like, sorry, I don't have any deals. It was like, hey, how's your day? Like it was a whole different conversation at that point.
Great point. I mean, building that rapport is so key. It's just a phenomenal way to think about it. And that's something I implore all of our listeners. If you're going to be active, if you're going to be hunting and looking for deals, great insights from Suzy and Michael on how to set yourself up and differentiate yourself as well in that space. I want to make sure that people know where to find you. You guys have put together this ebook. I believe the website is adventurousrei.com/impact. Can you talk a little bit about the ebook and what sparked you to write it?
Absolutely. So when I think about real estate investing, like I know you mentioned it at the very beginning, like we focus on a different ROI, return on impact, because when you really talk about people instead of profits with people, even though I understand profit is like the whole point of any business, right? But like conversations are different and the profits will come when you start talking about the people. But like people see real estate investing just as these millionaires who don't want the middle class to survive. They like don't want anybody to succeed. And I want to show like, no, like you create impacts. You create impacts with the residents. You create impacts with your friends and family or other investors, with the brokers, with the lenders, like with the vendors themselves who are coming and working on that property. Like there's so many more ripples to it than just a profit. And so when I wrote the ebook, which is Passive Investing with Purpose, that's what I want people to think about. Like an impact is an impact no matter what the size is. And we all get to decide what an impact is to us, right? Like if I just got to spend, if I had children, like more time with my kids, that's an impact towards them, right? But real estate investing, active or passive, I just combined the words, like both ways you make an impact on yourselves, on your family, on your friends, with everyone. And so I wanted more people to think like, okay, what purpose can I make or achieve while passive investing? Because it's huge when you start thinking about it that way, because your why changes, your goals are different, right? Like when you think like, oh, I can actually have extra time in my day or in my month or in my year, like the decisions that you make day to day are much more different. And so that's how it was born.
I think the great thing is that there's so many ways to invest. It's really important for people to find the strategy that works for them. You can love multifamily investing, but realize maybe you don't have the time and energy to do what Suzy and Michael have done, right? Or what I'm doing. You don't have the time to go out there, network with brokers, find deals, underwrite deals, tour properties, all the different steps that are involved. Maybe you can just invest passively, get the same benefits without the headaches of being a landlord or taking the time suck that it does take to find and uncover these opportunities. So it's a great way to invest. Figure out what works for you, but ultimately make sure that you are setting yourself up to get the impact you are looking for. That website again for that ebook is adventurousrei.com/impact, and make sure you check it out by Suzy and Michael. We are ready to move on to our ROI, our round of insights. You ready?
I like that.
All right, give me a failure or an apparent failure that sets you up for later success.
Oh gosh, looking at financials. So with our first, I guess, deal, right? Like with the financials, we asked for certain things and didn't get it, but we got a certified rent roll. And because of that, going forward, I will never accept a certified rent roll. I only want to see bank statements, income statements, all of the things.
Tax statements.
All
everything.
the things. And so that felt like a failure.
Yeah, when somebody is vertically integrated, it's very easy for them to funnel money into a property management company that they own. Just keep that in mind.
All right.
Also, a lot of people who, I was going to say people who also do that aren't like that. But
Not saying vertically integrated is bad at all. I'm just saying just be very cautious. Make sure that you ask for bank statements and tax statements, previous taxes, and I think that's
all the ways.
All of the ways you can verify income on a property. Yeah.
There you go. Verifying actual income on a property as opposed to just going off the rent roll in a T12.
Yes.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Give me a digital or mobile resource you recommend for your business.
Asana.
Yep.
So we use Asana. It's a project management software, but we use it like with our property management team and all of our like co-GPs, because everything is in one spot. So nobody has to search for an email. Nobody has to reach out to us and ask what an update is. Anyone can update Asana, insert invoices or pictures as needed, ask questions. And it's just, we really like, it's like a one-stop shop for everyone.
So it's great to liaise with our property management company on the ground, but also to liaise with our other general partners as we're closing on a deal, right? So we put everything in there that needs to occur from the time we submit the LOI till we close on the deal, everything that occurs, right? And then we're able to kind of assign those to certain people and then check them off as we go as well.
Yeah, Michael and I like checklists, so anything that has that.
There you go. All right, give me the book you've recommended or gifted the most in the last year.
Oh, gifted the most is Raising Capital for Real Estate by Hunter Thompson. Just because we have so many people ask, how we did it from all the way over here. And because in the space, you hear a lot of people like wanting to raise capital and have that be one of their only duties. And so that is a book that we have gifted and recommended often. But if you aren't looking to raise capital, Who Not How by Dan Sullivan, we recommend all the time, because it just puts you on a whole different level to success when you figure out that your who's will get you to that final, destination. Yeah.
There you go. What's a daily habit that helps you stay focused on your goals?
Meditation and scribing. So we meditate every day, 10 minutes, and then scribe right after that. So during scribing, we write down like a motivational quote for the day, 3 things that we're grateful for, and 3 things that we want to accomplish for the day. And then Suzy and I like read them to each other. And also we have our affirmations on there as well. So we repeat those affirmations and we read what we scribe or what we journal to each other, make sure we hold each other accountable. Yeah. And we can also repeat our affirmations out loud to each other.
There you go. Like that. All right. What is your number one insight for investing?
I'm going to repeat what you said earlier, John. And that was, be aggressive with your actions and patient with the outcome, right? I think that's the biggest thing is like, as we talked about through this entire podcast, was talking about, following up, right? Taking action and following up. Like if you attend all these networking events, great, but nothing happens unless you follow up with the connections that you made, right?
No, great points there. And it also allows you to identify maybe areas where you need to improve. Maybe you are talking to a lot of people, but you know what? I didn't follow up with people from that event. And now you can kind of self-correct and realize, okay, here's maybe an angle that I can take and be a little bit more efficient and effective there. So just think it's really smart to self-scout, if you will, and figure out what you can improve on. All right, let's lighten the mood. You all are in Cambridge, so give me the best place to grab a bite to eat.
Oh, well, I'm going to say Stem and Glory.
Stem and Glory, yeah.
But that's because it's my favorite. So Michael and I are vegan, but they make like all the different kinds of dishes that I've never thought I could make before. But also during lockdowns, they did like Instagram lives that were cook-alongs. And so I think that's why they're also my favorite, because I learned to make so many things that I didn't think I could ever make.
And for dessert, Crosstown Donuts is amazing. They have sourdough donuts that are vegan, which is mind blowing. If you don't know how sourdough donut, be prepared to get your mind blown.
All right. Two good options. Not sure if we'll ever get to Cambridge or when we'll be there, but for many of our listeners, please check it out when you are there. Listen, you guys gave us a lot of great insights. I appreciate you sharing your journey from, really the military to getting your PhD over in Cambridge. Lockdown really opened up your eyes as you started reading more, doing your mini book club, getting into real estate, figuring out how to take advantage of virtual learning sessions and virtual meetups, and ultimately starting to invest in the Oklahoma City, Tulsa markets, building up the current portfolio you have now with 5 different deals in that region. I think that's incredible to do all that in about a 12 or 13 month window is just crazy. So congratulations on all your success there. And for our listeners, if you want to check them out more, they have a podcast, Adventures REI podcast, as well as their website. Again, they've got that free ebook at adventurousrei.com/impact. We'll make sure we link to that in the show notes. Suzy and Michael, I just want to thank you both again for coming on the show today. Hope you have a great day.
Thanks, John. It was such a pleasure.
Yeah, it was awesome. Thank you so much.